And legitimately so. Who was I talking to? Martin, I think we were talking. He goes, I wasn't expect to be moved by Shiloh. And it's sort of interesting how you come here and you expect certain places to move you and others not, and then, whoa, the Lord just surprises you by just laying it on you hard and heavy in a place. This is one of those places that's pretty powerful when we put the place in and correct some of the imagery that our artwork has taken us the wrong direction on. When you look at Jericho, Old Testament Jericho, as far as you can see this way, and about as far as you can see that way, is all you have. 9-10 acres. This is not the largest fortification of its time. It is not particularly massive in its footprint, well, to say it better, you know, when the artwork we see creates this large medieval castle that goes on and on and on and on, this is not that place. This is more of a border lookout station than it is a massive medieval castle. And its intentions are to collect tariffs and to warn the interior of invasion and provide a safe house, right, to hide out in case somebody tries to take it away from you. So the idea is not that Jericho had to go away because it was so large. Israel could have come across the ford, bypassed it, gotten water and just gone up into the interior. It didn't have to go away because it was so large, because, you want to finish my sentence, because it was so critically placed. Yeah, where it was made all the difference, because it is this choke point between travel up there that's broad and then narrows down to the spring and then broadens out again. It had to go away because we have Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh with family over here. This is partly supply line early in the conquest, and you cannot have someone harassing the backside of your supply line. And so the Lord says that city needs to go away, and he does it in this extraordinary fashion. We couldn't come here and not read it, could we? Joshua 6 is where I'll be. Joshua 6. Now the gates of Jericho were securely barred because of the Israelites. No one came in, no one went out. What are they doing? They're saying, like we've been attacked before, looks like trouble out there at the ford, we'll shut up the doors and we'll wait them out. And a little bit later, I'll show you some of the defensive technology here, and you'll see just how difficult, even though it wasn't large, just how difficult it might be to take over the place. We've got a really good example on the south side of the site of the layers of defenses that are put in place. Promise I'll show those to you. The Lord said to Joshua, see, I've delivered Jericho into your hands. That wasn't so obvious, right? The guys have locked the doors. You've got this array of defenses around it. You can see that's a faith site, right? You see, I've delivered Jericho into your hands along with its king and its fighting men. March around the city once with all the armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. And on the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. And when you hear them sound a long blast on the trumpets, have the whole army give a loud shout, and then the wall of the city will collapse, and the army will go up, everyone straight in. That's an incredible plan, right? It doesn't sound like a very effective siege mechanism at the human level, because you've got people who are locked in with their food and water supply. You're out here with your food and water supply. And how about we lay out some sort of siege mechanism or strategy? How about if we taunt them verbally, tell them what we're going to do to them if we are able to successfully to get past their defenses? These are all techniques of ancient siege warfare. Marching once around the city and going back to camp looked like nothing else before, and that was the point. That was the point. The Lord is putting a signature on here that makes it look different than everything else. And on day 7, go around and then you make some noise. So, verse 6, Joshua, son of Nun, called the priests and said, take up the Ark of the Covenant. This is the unique piece of worship furniture that we expect to be in the tabernacle. Here the Lord says, remove it from the tabernacle, put it out there in sight of everyone. It was a participant in the crossing of the Jordan. It's going to be a participant here, putting the Lord's signature on the event. Take up the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord and have 7 priests carrying trumpets in front of it. And he ordered the army, advance. March around the city with an armed guard, going ahead of the Ark of the Lord. And when Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets before the Lord went forward, blowing their trumpets, and the Ark of the Lord's covenant followed them. The armed guard marched ahead of the priests who blew the trumpets, and the rear guard followed the Ark. And all this time the trumpets were sounding. But Joshua had commanded the army, don't give a war cry, don't raise your voices, don't say a word, till the day I tell you to shout. Well, you remember Maher sounding the ram's horn? Haunting sound. Imagine that going around your city. So he had the Ark of the Covenant carried round the city, circling it once, and the army returned to camp and spent the night there. Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests took up the Ark of the Lord. The 7 priests, carrying the 7 trumpets, went forward, marching before the Ark of the Lord, blowing the trumpets. The armed men went ahead of them, and the rear guard followed the Ark of the Lord, while the trumpeters kept sounding. So, on the 2nd day, they marched around the city once and returned to the camp, and they did this for 6 days. So they're doing exactly what the Lord directed, and that's the purpose of the repetition, right? It's a bit burdensome for us who are more sophisticated listeners, if you will, to hear all of that repetition, but there's a purpose behind it. Yep, they're doing exactly what the Lord had told them to do. And on the 7th day, they got up at daybreak and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner, except that on that day, they circled the city 7 times. 7th time around, when the priest sounded the trumpet blast, Joshua commanded the army, shout, for the Lord has given you the city, and the city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in the house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. That's emphasized because the next story illustrates somebody didn't do that. Otherwise, you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble on it. All of the bronze, all of the silver, and all the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord, kadosh, set aside, and must go into his treasury. That was a long interlude. When the trumpet sounded. But that was setting us up to hear what happens next, because in the next chapter what happens is we find Achan did not observe that, and so we're sort of getting a preview of what to expect. When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. And so everyone went straight in, and they took the city. A favorite Sunday school story. At least it was in my day. Seems like every curricular cycle we got this story. It has lots of drama and lots of interest and all of that. It always turned out the same way. So, but we knew how the story was going to end. But the miracle of a collapsing wall is what lies at the heart of that. And it's not just that it's collapsed, but the fact that it fell outward. And I know that because the text says they used it as a ramp to charge straight up in, which is really unusual. Walls, if they're under siege, fall inward. You push them in, you don't pull them down on top of you. And so the idea that the wall falls out and forms a ramp so that people can go up straight, that sounds funny as well. So what happened? Is it a pure miracle of God without natural explanation, or is it a natural event? We're right in this seismic line here where the two tectonic plates are joined. Was there an earthquake that was miraculous in the fact that it occurred at that specific moment? I don't know for sure, but something happened at the Lord's direction which caused the defenses, which would have taken so many lives. And that will become clear when we go to the south here, that the miracle that spared so many lives put the Lord's signature on it, and really is the marquee moment for understanding how we are to go and fight in the interior. We've had battles on that side that aren't going to have the same miraculous stuff. This is the first battle in Canaan, in the Promised Land. So we get miracle, and the Lord is saying, this is how we do this. I mean, I love the elegance and the simplicity of saying, look, I know how armies fight in the ancient world. That's your paradigm. This is how we do this. You know, lean unto me, and I'll make sure that the amount of fighting you have to do is severely restricted. And when they didn't do that, that's when trouble came up on the horizon. This is to be the paradigm of how to do it. So it's the first one and functions in that way as well. Questions, thoughts that you have about that event in this place? Yes?
We all have mountains that need to be moved. We all have walls that need to come down.
We all have walls that need to come down. I like it. I like it.
Does the word for collapse that's used, does that give any sense of implode or explode or push one way or the other? It's
the language that they went straight up in. There's an implication there that we're moving up a ramp-like mechanism. That's where I'm getting these defensive structures. And that'll be clearer, I think, on the south side, that we're getting the defensive structures repositioned in a way that suggests entry.